Okay, so until now we have discussed the roles, Scrum roles, artifacts, and the sprint goal, product goal, and definition of done. And now let's talk about the events part. So Scrum is having 5 events. Now, events are activities which are bound to happen at a certain interval with a set time box and participants within which they inspect and adapt the artifacts. Time boxing is a rule in Scrum, is one of the rules in Scrum, which means a maximum allowed time for an activity. So this is what a time boxing means. Now, each activity in Scrum is time boxed. Now, in order to understand that what is the activity, what is the time box, who are the participants, inspect and adapt, let's create a table that would really help us to understand this for the events. So I'm just going to create the table structure. So here, and let's bring it over here. Then with me. So let's say this is our events. This is going to be the time box, participants, inspect and adapt. So this side is the events. Your time box for the event, participants, inspect, and then adapt. You can consider inspect and adapt as an input and output of the event also. So to start with, our first event is sprint. And the time box for a sprint is 1 month. You cannot have a sprint of more than a month. Calendar days. Participants, the whole Scrum team participate in this. Scrum team means product owner, Scrum master, and developers. The input for the sprint is your product backlog, and the output or the adapt part is the increment. So the input for the sprint is the product backlog. No doubt, we also have some more elements, but consider product backlog is the main part that goes into the sprint, and the output of a sprint, or I would say the single purpose, if at all you want to reduce sprint to a single purpose, then that purpose is creating an increment, which is in a potentially releasable state. Sprint starts with the sprint planning. And for 1 month sprint, this time box is 8 hours. And if your sprint is shorter than a month, then this time is usually shorter. Who participate? Scrum team participate in this. What is the inspect part? The inspection part comes as a ordered product backlog. Then capacity. This could be your velocity or could be the availability of the developers in the sprint, plus a reference to the definition of done. And what we adapt to the sprint backlog, which is Scrum team agree on a sprint goal. In order to meet this goal, developers forecast the PBIs and a plan to deliver it. Then comes your daily Scrum, which is 15 minutes always, irrespective of the sprint length. Who must participate? Developers. Product owner and Scrum Master are optional. They can be invited. But in case your product owner or Scrum Master, they are also actively working on the product backlog items, then they can participate in daily Scrum as developers. The input, what they inspect their plan, which is nothing but sprint backlog. And if required, they will adapt to the plan. So the whole purpose of daily Scrum is to inspect the progress towards the goal and what developers need to do in order to achieve the goal. So they'll inspect and adapt their plan. Then comes your sprint review. Sprint review is a 4 hours event for 1 month and usually shorter for the shorter duration. And then who participate? Participants are Scrum team plus the stakeholders. What we inspect over here? We inspect increment. And the purpose of review is to get feedback. Feedback from your stakeholders. And this gets adapted to product backlog. Then comes your last event, which is sprint retrospective. Time box for 3 hours for 1 month. Usually shorter for shorter duration of time. Who must participate? Each member of the Scrum team participate as a Scrum team member in this event. It's an opportunity for the Scrum team to inspect and adapt themselves. So what they inspect? They inspect people and their professional relations, any tools and technology related challenges, any process related concerns, plus definition of that. And what they adapt to? They adapt to actionable process improvements. So this is how it looks like. Now, if we want to visualize that how all these events looks like, so we can take an example from here. Consider that we are having a sprint of 2 weeks. Okay, so consider the sprint starts from Monday to Friday. Something like this. And let's say it is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And consider this is how it looks like. So Monday, sorry. So this container event is sprint. Consider it's a 2 week sprint. And our sprint starts with the sprint planning, which let's say over here. On a daily basis, is the daily Scrum. Then let's say second last event is your review. And the last event is retrospective. So this is how broadly we can visualize it. So it is a planning moment, daily Scrum where developer come and assess their progress towards achieving the goal, review, and then the last one is the retro. So this is how it is considered as a container event. Now, how all this works together. So we have to connect the dots. But before we connect the dot, we have to also understand another activity, which is product backlog refinement. Why it is called as an activity and not an event? Because product backlog refinement is at a discretion of the Scrum team. When they want to do it, how many times they want to do it in a sprint, whether they want to do it or not, time box for that, everything is decided by the Scrum team. So it is not mandated to happen at a certain interval. It can happen anytime during the sprint as decided by Scrum team. So the next topic is going to be our product backlog refinement.